started to talk on the persimmon, astringent and sweet persimmon, I introduced Menzan's writings about the persimmon, and Okumura Roshi's idea, he used persimmon as an example of our practice, came from Menzan's teaching. So I'd like to summarize what Menzan said. He said there is 4 types of people. Excuse me. One type of people use the word is nen, mind or thought, being pulled by evil, and they go to 3 difficult realms of samsara. And another people use nen in a good way, and they go to upper part of 6 realms. These are hell, the realms of hungry ghost, animal, ashura, human beings, and heavenly beings. And the highest is heavenly beings. And heavenly beings, there are 3 kinds of heaven in Buddhist cosmology. One is heaven as a part of world of desire, and other 2 are a kind of a realm of meditation. First, so this is the realm of desire. And second part, first part is part of world of desire, and second part of the heaven is world of form called form or rupa, and the highest is without rupa or formless, and these 2 are kind of realms of meditation. But in not only Buddhism but in Indian idea, no one can stay any condition forever, but they are always moving and changing. That is the idea of transmigration within samsara. So even if you are in the highest part of the heaven, still you may go down somewhere else. So this is so-called samsara. And so first kind, second kind, and the third kind is people who want to leave samsara and enter nirvana. And in order to, according to Buddhist teaching, in order to enter nirvana, they have to give up all desires and also all the privilege and responsibility in the world, and really devote their lives in practice and meditation, and and eliminate all 3 poisonous mind. Then they could go to enter nirvana. And those people are called arahat. Until they arahat, the highest kind of a stage in the early Buddhism, and then until they attain arahathood, they are still transmigrating within samsara. So this is a third type of people. And the fourth is, according to Menzan, Bodhisattva. According to him, people who practice in order to enter nirvana is and trying to eliminate three poisonous mind. Is a kind of escaping from samsara, and they want to go somewhere better. But bodhisattvas are different from those people who practice in order to enter nirvana. But in the first of the four bodhisattva vows, bodhisattva, one of the definition of bodhisattva is a person who live being led by vows instead of karma. These people are living based on their karmic desires. But bodhisattva live not being led by karma, but being by vow. And the first vow of bodhisattva is, of course, all of you know, because we chant after lecture. That is, sentient beings are numberless. We vow to save them. And this word "save" means to. Here is a river between samsara and nirvana, and samsara is called this shore, and nirvana is called other shore. And here is a big river between samsara and nirvana. The word save or do in Japanese literally means to cross over this river. So the first, I often speak, but the first vow we take as a four bodhisattva vows is sentient beings in this shore are numberless, and we vow to save, to help them to cross over this river and help them enter nirvana. And save them means save them all, not few, all of them. That means this vow, the first vow, means we, as a bodhisattva, we don't cross over the river and enter nirvana until all living beings go there. That means we vow to be a last person to enter nirvana. Until all of them went there, all living beings went to enter nirvana, we stay here. That is Bodhisattva vow. That's the difference. According to Mahayana people, that's the difference between Mahayana practitioner or Bodhisattva and practitioner, so-called Hinayana. We have to be careful to use this word. But so this is the basic attitude of Bodhisattva. So our goal is not, of course, our goal is to go to nirvana, but as a last person. That means we vow to stay in this shore until all living beings go to nirvana. So in the if that is the case, I think it's a kind of a strange thing. If we are all bodhisattvas, no one is here. Everyone is working in this side. So nirvana is empty. No one is there. So it's kind of a lonely place. So until all people enter nirvana means this Showa, all living beings in this Showa, this Showa becomes nirvana. If all people have this attitude to help other people to enter nirvana first, if all people have this attitude, then this Showa becomes nirvana. That is the meaning of Samsara and Nirvana are one. That is very basic teaching of Mahayana. That means Bodhisattva is a people who are working to make this Showa into Nirvana. So Nirvana is not somewhere else, but we need to find Nirvana here and make this Showa into Nirvana. That is Bodhisattva practice. So our goal is not to eliminate three poisonous mind. In order to live within this Showa, we need somehow three poisonous mind. So our practice is not to eliminate those three poisonous mind, but Menzan said we use those three poisonous mind in different way as a threefold pure precept. In order to do good things, we need to be greedy. And in order to avoid evil things or bad things, we need to have anger against evil. And in order to share the result of our effort or practice with all beings, we need ignorance. That means no discrimination between self and others. That is basic attitude or spirit of Bodhisattva. So Menzan said there are 4 types of beings. And first 3 are very traditional idea in Buddhism. Even in the earliest scripture, such as the Dhammapada, Buddha mentioned those 3 types, first 3 types. For example, verse 126 of Dhammapada, it said, some people are born on this earth. Those who do evil are reborn in hell. The righteous go to heaven. But those who are pure reach nirvana. So there are 3 kinds of people. First 2 are good and bad. If we do good thing, we are born in heaven, and if we do evil thing, we go down to the hell. But Buddha said, those who are pure reach nirvana. So in this case, pure means going beyond good and bad. That is, nirvana. So, Bodhisattva who is working in this Showa, in order to make this Showa into nirvana, need both. We need to do good things, and we need to avoid unwholesome things. And yet we need to go beyond this discrimination between good and bad, or wholesome and unwholesome at the same time. How can we do that? Is the basic koan for Bodhisattva. So Bodhisattva is from the very beginning. It's a contradicted or paradoxical way of life. The final goal is to enter nirvana or attain Buddhahood. But we vow to be the last person to reach there. That means until then we stay here. We vow to stay here and work with people in this shore. To do so, we need three poisonous mind. But if we are simply being pulled by good and bad desire, then we are not bodhisattva. We are people just simply transmigrating within samsara. So we need attitude or understanding that we are beyond good discrimination between good and bad, and yet we need to follow, the ethics, morality. That means good and doing good and not doing evil. So we should do, both. It's really contradicted way of life. That is our basic koan as a bodhisattva. And so one definition, not a definition, but one quality of life of bodhisattva is bodhisattva doesn't stay in this shore because of wisdom. And bodhisattva doesn't stay in nirvana because of compassion. So bodhisattva actually dwell or abode nowhere. Not simply in samsara and not simply in nirvana. But because of compassion, we are free from good, and because of wisdom, we are free from discrimination between good and bad. That means we can embrace all beings, even people who create bad karma. We don't discriminate. And yet, because of compassion, we don't escape from this world and enter nirvana. So, wisdom of seeing emptiness allow us to be free from transmigration. And yet, because of compassion, we intentionally being part of this or participate this transmigration as a practice of our vow. That is the kind of a ideal of Bodhisattva in Mahayana Buddhism. So, when Menzan talks about the persimmon and without squeeze out the astringency or tannin that makes the persimmon astringent or not eatable, still we don't take them, we don't squeeze them out, but we have to work how to make this astringent quality into sweet persimmon. That is our practice. So when Okumura Roshi use this example of persimmon, we have to understand what Okumura Roshi is talking about. He doesn't mention here. So it's kind of difficult if we only read this translation, what Okumura Roshi is talking about. When he talks about persimmon, he talks about this Bodhisattva way of life or practice. Okay, then I go to the next second paragraph, still page 1. The persimmon has another characteristic that is very interesting, but to understand it, you have to know something about the Oriental persimmon. There are 2 types of persimmon trees, the sweet persimmon or amagaki in Japanese. Ama means sweet. Kaki become gaki as a kind of a pronunciation. So amagaki in Japanese, and the bitter mouth-puckering persimmon called shibugaki. When you plant seeds from a sweet persimmon tree, all the saplings coming up as astringent persimmon trees. Now, if I said that if you planted seeds from a sweet persimmon, all the saplings would become sweet persimmon trees, anyone could understand. But it doesn't seem to work that way. Without exception, all the saplings planted from sweet persimmon seeds are bitter. If you want to grow a sweet persimmon tree, what do? Well, first you have to cut a branch from a sweet persimmon tree, and then you graft it onto an astringent persimmon trunk. In time, the branch will bear sweet fruit. So when we plant the seed from sweet persimmon, the trees become astringent. It's really interesting. So in Japan, when they grow persimmon, they graft the branch of sweet persimmon tree on the astringent persimmon. That's how they, grow persimmon fruit. But astringent persimmon can be edible. As Menzan said, when it's dried. I mean, in Japan, people peel the astringent persimmon and dry them. Then it becomes really sweet. That is one of the way astringent persimmon become edible. And this is done in the fall, before winter. And during winter there's no much sweet stuff. So dried persimmon was really a kind of a good snack for kids. So it was very important food, dried astringent persimmon. That was only way, in the ancient times, they could eat astringent persimmon. But today, there are several more methods. One is to, put the persimmon in alcohol and contain in a box and keep them for a week or so. It becomes sweet. Another way was to heat in a boiling water or dry heat, more than certain temperature. Then tannin become what's the word? When tannin can dissolve in the water, it becomes astringent. But when it become solid, not dissolved in the water, then it doesn't affect. So we can taste sweet. in order to, so heat helps the tannin to transform to that way. And third way, and this is done by, how can I say, farmers today, is to contain with, what is the English word? CO2. How do you say? Carbon dioxide. Then it becomes sweet. Pardon? Seal, yeah, or contain, yeah, in a certain container with CO2. And I checked in the internet the day before yesterday. Those methods is, in a sense, to kill the fruit. If it becomes completely ripened, it becomes sweet. But when it's completely ripened, it becomes too soft. It becomes like a jelly, so we cannot preserve. So the point is, kill them when they are young. Human beings are terrible living beings. So, please.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The astringent persimmon, if it became completely ripe, it would be sweet?
Yeah.
Oh. So what are those persimmons we buy in the store that have to be like practically breaking open before they're sweet? Are those them or are those the other kind?
Completely ripened, it's too soft, like a jelly.
Well,
So we cannot sell. We cannot, transport.
I think they're the same ones.
And it, easily break.
Hmm.
So they cannot be commercial good. And it's naturally fall down from the tree. So it's not so useful.
Do these all taste the same, or are there some that have better flavor?
Yeah, various, slightly different taste. Anyway, in order to make fruits kind of a commercial goods, we human beings invented to kill the fruit when they are young. Then it's kind of, clever, but I don't know it's good or not. But that is the way we make, astringent persimmon into sellable commercial goods. So now we have various methods to make persimmon sweet. And also, if it's not, there's the tannin itself is also very useful. They sell, tannin from persimmon in Japan. Then they pick the fruits when they are still very green, and they, what do you call, crush, and squeeze all the juice, very astringent juice, and they ferment the tannin, and it become, it has a very strong smells bad, but it become paint that waterproof. So, when we do takuhatsu, we wear a bamboo hat. We paint that bamboo hat with this paint made from kaki or persimmon tannin. And these days, of course, chemical artificial paint is more of course, more popular, but some people are allergic. But the paint made from persimmon has not, that, how can I say, it's safe for allergic people. So today, even today they use the paint made from persimmon. And persimmon, and that could be used as also a Chinese medicine. And persimmon is really, useful plants. The tree or wood is very hard, so it's used to make furniture. And persimmon leaves have a lot of vitamin C, so they make tea, herb tea, from using persimmon leaves. And it also used to, how can I say, kind of a sushi, fermented rice, keep the rice from becoming bad. It's preserve, what's the word? Preserve, yeah. So there are many ways to use persimmon. So astringency is not really bad thing. It's a very useful thing. And we have to not evaluate, but appreciate our three poisonous mind also. Depending upon how we use, it can be really useful, or without three poisonous mind, we cannot really live, at least in this shore. So our practice is not against, fighting against three poisonous mind, but our practice is to how to use those three poisonous mind in a positive, healthy way. Anyway, so originally, that is what he's going to explain in the next paragraph, how to make astringent persimmon into sweet persimmon. And, all the persimmon tree, even from the sweet persimmon seed, become astringent. So Okumura Roshi had a question, where the first sweet persimmon came from. So let me read paragraph 3. I used to wonder how that first sweet persimmon tree came about. If all the persimmon tree, even from a sweet persimmon, become astringent, where this sweet persimmon came. If the saplings from the seeds from a sweet persimmon all come up astringent, where did that first sweet persimmon come from? One day I had the opportunity to ask a botanist who specializes in fruit trees, and he told me this. First of all, the oriental persimmon is an indigenous Japanese fruit, as I said yesterday. It goes back thousands of years. It takes many years to grow a sweet persimmon. Even the fruit of a tree 40 or 50 years old will be astringent. That means we are talking about a tree that's at least 100 years old. Around that time, the first sweet branches on an astringent tree begin to ripen. those branches are then out of the tree. Those branches are then cut off the tree and are grafted onto a younger astringent one. What took over 100 years to grow on one tree is then transferred to another one to continue there. So this is how first sweet persimmon was not produced but somehow grew. It said even though the astringent persimmon tree, if it live for more than 100 years, somehow it start to bear sweet fruits. But if even the seed from that sweet fruit became astringent and start from the very beginning, so if human beings didn't cut the branch of sweet persimmon and graft to the astringent, it takes 100 years each, for one astringent tree to bear sweet fruit. But by cutting off from the very old tree and grafted to the young astringent tree, that young tree can bear a sweet fruit. So, this is a kind of a man-made artificial thing. Without human beings, how can I wonder who invent that method? It's really interesting. Someone maybe accidental, as an accident, maybe put a branch from a sweet persimmon tree and put into the astringent one. I don't know who and why, how the person think such a method. But not only the persimmon, but apples is also drafted in order to make a dwarf apple. So there are that kind of method, not only in Japan or China, not only about persimmon, but or other different plants also. That's a kind of wisdom of human beings to a little bit change the nature and make a little bit better or useful for us. So it's kind of self-centered. But that is a way, a sweet persimmon can be a kind of a product, and we can gain more sweet fruits from the young tree also. This is, and Okumura Roshi using this analogy as a kind of a transmission of Dharma. And not only Dharma, but also, our education is the same thing. Any knowledge or skills or techniques have been developed for many years. I think it takes very long years of many people to find some method, for example, like a grafting. But once someone established that method can be transmitted to younger people. Then younger people use that method or wisdom or skill or knowledge. That is how not only Buddhism but also any kind of knowledge or skills or techniques have been transmitted. That's how human civilization, have been developed. But here, Okumura Roshi used that analogy as a analogy of Dharma Transmission. So in the next paragraph, in a way, Buddhism and our own lives are just like that. If you leave humanity as it is, it has an astringent quality. No matter what country or what part of the world you look at. It just so happened, however, that several thousand years ago in India, in the culture of that day, a sweet persimmon was born. That was Buddhism, or more precisely, it was Shakyamuni Buddha, who was born like a branch on an astringent persimmon tree that after many, many years had finally borne sweet fruit. After a time, a branch was cut off that Indian tree and grafted onto the astringent rootstock that was the Chinese people of those days. I'm not sure if Chinese people agree with this or not. From there, a branch bearing sweet fruit was brought to Japan and planted in the barbaric country. I think this is true. More recent branches of those Asian trees have been grafted onto trees native to American soil. So he used, this method of grafting branch of sweet persimmon tree to astringent young tree as an example of or analogy of Dharma Transmission. I think not only Buddhism, but around the time of Buddha, or about 3,000 to 2,000 years ago, all those things happened in many places in the world, not only Buddhism in India, but in China or Egypt or Greek, or many other places we don't know. Even in America, there are very developed culture before we came. So it seems something kind of the same kind of things happened at many different places in the world around the same time. Not same, but for example, in India, not only Buddha, but there are many religious spiritual teachers or philosophers, and in China also, Confucius or Lao Tzu or Chuan Tzu or all other, philosophers appeared, and also in Greek or Egypt or Middle East or Persia, all different places somehow around that time developed not only spiritual but also philosophical or logical way of thinking, and also many different techniques or system to organize human beings, human effort are created. And that those cultures established by those people in that age kind of became a structure of human civilization, I think, until today. but somehow I think we are facing in another time of transformation or transition. The structure made by those people have been working in certain areas or certain society or culture, but now all those society or culture became one society due to the development of transportation, communication, and all other things. And so we need somehow to find a way to integrate all those different cultures or civilization or spirituality. Otherwise, we continue to fight and struggle each other. And Buddhism came from India to China and China to Japan, not only through China, Korea or Japan, but through East Asian countries. All traditions of Buddhism developed in Asia came to the West, and somehow Buddhism became a part of Western culture. So it's interesting. We don't know what happened in the future, but somehow we create something new. Anyway, so he says this sweet persimmon born in India has been transmitted to America. This part, this section is based on Okumura Roshi's lecture to his American students. This was done, I think, in 1977. I was already in Massachusetts, but a few people went to Antaiji from Massachusetts, from Valezendo. And I think this lecture was given on the occasion they went back to America. And Tom Wright was there, and he recorded and transcribed his lecture. And that was a material that become this part. So this time Okumura Roshi was talking to American people. Next paragraph. Now, one thing about big old trees is that they wither easily. For the most part, there is not much Buddhism left in Asia today, except for Southeast Asia and some places in Central Asia like Tibet. Japan is one of the few places you can find it, as withered and dried up as it may be. Now the sweet persimmon is being nurtured in America, and it needs to be tended and cultivated so it can flower and ripen here. It doesn't happen without care and attention. I have a question. What this here means? He was in Japan. So I think this is a kind of a mistake by the person who edited. That was Jisho. Jisho Wana. This is a kind of a Okumura Roshi's criticism against traditional Buddhism in Japan. Japan, Buddhism was transmitted to Japan in the 6th century, so almost about 1500 years ago, and so it has a long history, and it said more than 90% of Japanese people are Buddhist. That means belong to certain Buddhist temples. But that was made, or Japanese people were forced to be a member of certain Buddhist temples by the government in the 17th century. The government used Buddhist temples as a kind of tools to govern people. And especially at that time, Christianity was transmitted from the West, and it started to become popular. And the Japanese government found that the Christian missionary was the kind of beginning of kind of invasion from European countries to make Asian countries as a colony. So Japanese government, what the word, prohibited Christianity, and many Japanese Christian people were killed in the early 17th century by Tokugawa government, and they wanted to eliminate Christian. So they want to make sure all Japanese are Buddhist. So they force people to belong to certain Buddhist temples, and they request Buddhist priests to, kind of check all their members not to be Christian. That it was kind of a reason, Buddhist priests visit all lay members, home to do ceremony, to do service. But that visiting is a kind of the way to check if they are not a Christian. So it's a kind of a political thing. So since 17th century, Japanese, almost all Japanese become Buddhist on name, but they are not really became Buddhist because of their faith, but they are forced to be a Buddhist. And that system, family member, Buddhist temples supported by family member who had family graves in Buddhist temple, is still continues. And that is a basic structure of Japanese Buddhism today. But problem is, the family system in Japanese society has been changing. So family grave is not so important anymore. So they don't care about, having Buddhist funerals or memorial services anymore. So Buddhist temples has been losing the support from lay society. That very huge changes in the very foundation of Japanese society makes Buddhism a kind of losing influence, and I think it's okay. I don't care. It's not really Buddhism. It's a kind of a social structure, and Buddhism is used to govern the people by the government. And because of that, Buddhism or Buddhist temples or Buddhist orders receive protection or support from the government. So even though, more than 90% of Japanese people are Buddhist, as a statistic, but not many of Japanese people today don't think they are really Buddhist, and they don't know what Buddhist teaching is. But they think they are Buddhist because they have their family graves in Buddhist temples. So for us, to be a Buddhist means to visit the temples to a few times a year to visit our family graves. That is what Okumura Roshi is talking here. It's withered and dried up. It's not really vivid and lively or juicy anymore. So once a religion become an institution, and especially in and become a part of a social structure, has a connection with government or people who are in the high society, then almost always the genuine spirit or practice is lost. I think same thing happened in almost all religions. So Okumura Roshi doesn't have much hope to Japanese Buddhism, but he said once Buddhism or Buddhist practice is transmitted to the West and it become active and popular in the West, because Japanese people almost worship West. So they start to practice then again, import Buddhism again. That was his hope. So he, in a sense, he was very kind of glad that many Western people came to practice with him, and he had some hope, that movement, from that movement it might, the sweet persimmon can be transmitted to the next generation through that kind of movement. And we are still in that movement. But Okumura Roshi is saying, to do so, we need a lot of work. Now, the sweet persimmon is being nurtured in America, and it needs to be tended and cultivated so it can flower and ripen here. And it doesn't happen without care and attention. So we need to take care of this, young astringent tree in order to graft a branch from the sweet persimmon tree transmitted from India through China, Japan, and here. So we must be really careful, and also we have to work hard. If we don't graft really a sweet persimmon, we may, have different kind of fruits, strange fruits. So this Buddhist tradition is like drafting the sweet persimmon. Not only that tradition or practice or teaching, but also our individual life also should be like a sweet persimmon. That is what he's saying in the next paragraph. What I'm saying also applies to your individual life. I would like for as many of you as possible to become sweet persimmon branches, bearing the sweet fruit of a compassionate life, finding a true way to live as you settle on your astringent roots that are, after all, your own life and your family, co-workers, and society. I have a question about the last sentence. In this English sentence, does this mean your own life and your family, co-workers, and society are the astringent roots? Is that what this sentence is saying?
Yes.
Astringent roots that are your own life and your family, co-workers, and society. It doesn't make sense to me.
Sure it does.
Do you think so?
I think it does. Yeah, he talks before about coming to an astringent culture in Japan, or coming to it's like human life. He said earlier, human life has that astringent quality. It's kind of it's like suffering. It's kind of hard. And he's saying, what does he say? Settle on your roots, bring compassion, which isn't rejecting that astringency. It's actually embracing your life, your family, and so forth.
I don't think that is what Okumura Roshi is talking. I mean, the previous version also has the same sentence, but I don't think Okumura Roshi said such a thing. I think what he said was he wished to be a compassionate, fruits of compassionate life, and we should be compassionate to our own life, our families, co-workers, and all other people. So those are not, I think, astringent root, but we should be sweet persimmon and compassionate to all those people. I think that is what he said.
So they added in the astringent root part? Tom and Jisho without you?
Otherwise, I don't think it doesn't sound like, Okumura is talking.
I see.
I don't think he said, your, family or co-worker or things are astringent. But I think what he's saying is wish to become a sweet fruit and compassionate to all those people around us. And our family life, our life at work, and our life in larger community become a sweet fruit. I think that makes more sense.
You better talk to the others before the next edition comes out.
This is recorded and transcribed by Tom Wright, and so there's no Japanese origin. So I cannot compare.
Oh no.
I cannot figure out what Okumura Roshi really said.
There's no original.
Yeah, that's a problem. But I'm pretty sure. So what he's wishing is, to, this way of life of Bodhisattva, to, stay in this shore of samsara instead of escaping to nirvana. Stay here and work to make this shore into a nirvana or sweet fruit. that I think that is a spirit or practice of Bodhisattva, and this practice has been transmitted from India to China and China to Japan, and even though that spirit has been, almost, lost in Japan, but still there are some alive. And what Okumura wish is this spirit is transmitted, grafted to American soil. And as he said in his preface, many people who came to Japan to practice Zen was kind of looking for something else. That was his concern. That concern made him write this book. I mean, as I said in the last Sunday, in the beginning of his preface, entitled "The Theme of My Life," he says some kind of a mystical things, like the beauty of Kyoto, that is concealed by some mist or fog, and yet people thought there was something very important, within that mist. But Okumura Roshi's question was, when those all fog or mist are clear out, what is left? And he said nothing more, nothing. There's nothing much. But the real profound teaching of Buddhism is not that kind of mystical, mysterious things, but this way of life, to work and practice and study, not only some kind of Oriental, Eastern, Japanese mystical way of life or culture, something, it's very kind of exotic, something different from modern life, and as a kind of escape from modern society in which we are so busy and it's so noisy and there are so many problems. And in order to escape from that noisy, busy society, many people came to a quiet place and enjoy a kind of a mystical culture, like a tea ceremony. That was kind of Okumura Roshi's concern. So he wish, Western people who is searching for the true way of life, to find this way of life. And he said this is not simply a Western culture, Eastern culture, but wherever we are, if we really see the reality of human life, we can find the way, or the reality, same reality Buddha awakened to, and what Buddha taught. Well, and so he wish each one of us become a sweet persimmon, being, graft the teaching of Buddha or teaching of this Bodhisattvas, how to make our astringent nature into a sweet nature. How can we do that? And what Okumura Roshi is writing in this book is the practice, how we can transform our astringent or nature, such as or being pulled by our three poisonous mind, by to transform to Bodhisattva Way of Life, to live and practice based on the 4 Bodhisattva Vows. That is the way we can, become ourselves, become a sweet persimmon. And in his teaching, and also in Buddhist tradition, this or Soto Zen tradition, this Zazen practice is a kind of a key point of this transformation. In our Zazen, we don't be pulled by 3 poisonous mind, but we just, as Menzan said, we just illuminate the movement of 3 poisonous mind in our consciousness, and yet we are not being pulled by. But we don't also eliminate them, but we sit together with them. Then then we can see how those poisonous mind function and works and make our life into suffering or samsara. And when we refrain from live based on that way, then 3 poisonous mind can be helpful things to live as a bodhisattva, as Menzan said. The next paragraph. I have had only one concern in my life, helping to discover and mark a true way of life for humanity. That is why I became a monk. Over the years, I've never wished to become famous by the usual standards of fame. The only thing that matters to me is just to be an example of a true way of life that is possible for anyone, anywhere in the world. As he said in the preface, also I talked on last Sunday. When he was a teenager, he had a kind of a wish or desire, because as a tradition, he was living in the Western culture, Eastern culture, but as horizontally, because of so much influence from Western culture or civilization. When he was young, he felt he was living at the intersection of Eastern and Western culture. So he could study both Eastern tradition and Western civilization. And from there, he wanted to discover something new, integrate both, tradition, and create something, not create, but find, something helpful to integrate both civilization or cultures. So he first studied Western philosophy and Christianity, and he became a Buddhist monk. And he wanted to, so he had a kind of but he had a criticism against Eastern tradition from Western way of rational way of thinking. And yet, so he wanted to take all junks in the Eastern tradition out and find, discover a real treasure in it. And he wanted to present that treasure to the Western people. That was, I think, his vow. And he devoted his entire life to study both Western culture and Eastern spirituality. And once he found the, at least to him, the true way of life, he tried to explain it using a kind of understandable expression or language to not only Western but to us also, and try to transmit that essential treasure in the Eastern tradition to the younger generation, not only East or West. So what he wanted to discover was a real way, true way of life based on both Eastern tradition and Western culture, and that can be, a model of way of life for all human beings in the future. That was his vow, if we appreciate his effort or not. And I encountered with his teaching and practice when I was very young, and I was really deeply influenced by his way of life and his practice. And if I didn't encounter his teaching, I really didn't know how to live. I had so many questions about modern civilization, the way we have to live in modern society. It's so materialistic and so busy, and I couldn't find any meanings to live in that way. As I often say, when I was a teenager, it seems to me that the entire Japanese society is like a huge money-making machine, and that was what I thought when I was a high school student, and I thought the school is a factory to produce the parts of that machine, and I couldn't find any meanings to live as a part of that machine. So I wanted to drop out, and I did. But I didn't know how to live if I dropped out from that machine. I really didn't know what to do. So if I didn't encounter this teaching of Okumura Roshi and the tradition from Shakyamuni or Dogen Zenji, I couldn't really find, I think I couldn't find a positive way of life. I just, became a kind of probably, if I didn't encounter with this teaching, I became a kind of how can I say, twisted person. I didn't really like, this world, but somehow, because, I have to live, I do something, but I couldn't find really, positive meaning in whatever I might do. But, because I really appreciate and grateful to encounter this kind of teaching, I could really, positively important question, and this is real koan. I mean, Buddhism, not Buddhism, only Buddhism, but any religion or spiritual practice have two ways to lose life. One is to become kind of a, what is the word? separate from the society, become like a cult. Then that is one way, religion lose life. And another way is to become too popular. And it's just a part of the culture. So we need to find the middle way. If we are like a hermit, we try to, separate ourselves from, major American society, then we lose the life of, this practice. But if we become, try to become popular, we present Buddhism in the way many American people want to. That might be another way to lose the genuine spirit. So we need to find a middle way. And Okumura Roshi once mentioned that religion or spiritual teaching is like a, what do you call, water wheel. When water wheel is put above the flow of water, it doesn't turn. And yet, if the water wheel is sink into the water, it also doesn't turn. So we need to find certain position that turn the Dharma wheel.
Okay. Would you repeat the question again, because I didn't catch the question. The taping started with your answer.
The question was, how can we prevent, as practitioners of Buddhism, it from becoming just a religion that we say we practice, but we really don't. It's not an authentic practice. How can we prevent us not practicing it in an authentic way?
Thanks.
And is my answer recorded? Good.
Enough of your answers in there.
So this is really a common, I think. As a Bodhisattva practice, we need to, make effort to share this teaching and practice with as many people as possible. Otherwise, we lose the life. But if we try to become too popular, then we lose the life again. So, what we should do? And there is no fixed answer. And because the water level is always changing, the position of the water wheel also should be adjusted always. Otherwise, if we fixed certain position, then because of the change of the water level, it becomes too kind of separate from the society, or too, how can I say, low, sink into the popular thing, in this country, Zen, the word Zen is used in so many different meanings, and many of them has nothing to do with real Zen practice. But if we, try to use and take advantage that kind of interest from the society, and try to sell our practice in that way, then maybe we lose the life of our practice. But if we try to, to separate from all that kind of a necessity of the society, and we think we just live deep in the mountains or in the forest and practice only with a small group, then we also lose the life. So we really need to check what is a good position, best position for us to, make this Dharma wheel turning. And it's really difficult. But we need to be really careful about that.
The integration
Mhm.
of Buddhism into American life, do you feel is more promising because of the way the Dharma is transmitted to really solidify the leadership, where in Christianity the leadership seems to engulf a bigger net?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question. Christianity, could you say what you said about Christianity?
Christianity, when they go to ordain their priests, there's many, many more ordained as Christian priests or ministers. Do you think that because in Buddhism it's so selective to the transmission of Buddhism, do you think that ensures a greater probability that it will be integrated more authentically?
I'm not sure. The problem, not a problem, but I think it's true that we need more Buddhist teachers. And yet the system to produce teachers is not yet established. That's the problem. But if that kind of system is established and start to produce many teachers, that might cause another problem. So wherever we go, we have problems. Please.
I'm just thinking about the teachers who I have seen being produced. Many of them are in residence at San Francisco Zen Center because there aren't sanghas to support them, and I don't know. And I also remember the struggles of the teachers raised by Okumura Roshi. You've seen how hard it's been for them.
Yeah.
Because we have a society that's not ready for that many Buddhist priests. And
Right.
maybe because Buddhism doesn't tend to attract rich people so much.
I don't know.
So Buddhist priest has to have a job.
Yeah, I think we need more support from the larger society. So we need to work toward that direction, but it's become too popular. Again, we have a trap.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a difficult thing, but I think it takes time. If we are too much in a hurry to make Buddhism popular thing, then we produce a problem and we harm the genuine spirit of practice. In a sense, that was what happened in the 80s. At many of American Zen centers, I think. At least one of the reasons is Zen become too popular. Not only people who are really wanted to practice or study Dharma and live, based on Dharma teaching, but some Zen was kind of very attractive to so many people who were looking for something else. I think that was one of the causes of the problems we had in the 80s. I'm not sure it's true or not, but that is my observation. So we have to be careful if it becomes too popular. That means Buddhism attract people who are not really, seeking the spiritual path, but also something else, something caused by three poisonous mind. That's why Uchamura said we need to take care of this young tree. You have something to say?
You mostly answered it, but I do have one question. I'm wondering what Okumura Roshi did the rest of his life after he retired from Antaiji, like what his daily life was. And obviously he thought session and monastic training was very important, but I don't know, I'm wondering how much he did of that, leading session, how much writing.
Well, he was the abbot of Antaiji for 10 years, since he was 53 to 63. And when he became the abbot, he said, I'll be the abbot only 10 years. Because physically he was very weak person. He had TB for 50 years. And half of his lung didn't work. So it was really difficult for him even to live. And when he becomes 63, he couldn't sit 5-day session because of physical, difficulties. So he retired from Antaiji. But during that 10 years, he ordained, I think, almost 25 people and give Dharma Transmission to 8 people. And I was the last person who received transmission. And after he retired from Antaiji, before that, he married again when he was a few years after he became the abbot. So he was about 55. He married twice before he became a monk, and first 2 wives died. Anyway, so after retirement, he lived with his wife, and he continued to give lectures on Shobo Genzo once a month for, I think, until 75 or so. So he continued to teach in that way. He didn't live and practice with his disciples, but he gave public Dharma lectures on Shobo Genzo for, I think, about 15 years, until he physically couldn't continue. And he wrote many essays. When he retired, he said after that time, his practice was to see his own life and death. And he continued to write essays and poems about aging and dying. And until the day he died, he, wrote a poem. The poem is in this book. So until the very day he died, he continued to find a way and transmit or communicate what this teaching or practice is. So he finished directly teaching or educating his disciples when he was 63, but in a sense he continued to practice and teach until he was 86. So more than 20 years. Please.
One of the things that I was thinking about in the spread of Christianity, it was so, and this is just an observation, I'm certainly not a scholar on this by any stretch of the imagination, but it seemed to me that the spread of Christianity was so controlled by cognition, that and controlling in the way of people's behavior. Whereas the unfoldment of Buddhism, I have greater faith for, because it's more moment to moment to moment. and the unfoldment is more witnessed. Do you see what I mean?
I'm not sure because I don't know about Christianity, but I hope so. I mean, in Buddhism or Buddhist tradition, the order or institution is not so strong. After Buddha died, they didn't select second Buddha, but they had about 500 arahats or enlightened people, and they had a counseling or meeting to record Buddha's teaching by consensus, and there's no authority, no one person who has entire authority of entire Buddhism, like a pope. We didn't have pope. In Tibet, it seems they have, but each of those elders had their own student or disciples. So they have more kind of a democratic structure in Buddhist Sangha. And in each district, they have their kind of independent Sanghas, and they have their own collection of sutras and vinayas or precept. So there are many different traditions in Buddhism, but there's no kind of absolute authority and institutional structure which cover all Buddhism. Soto school is one of the biggest Buddhist order in Japan today, but it's not really. As an organization, it's not really strong. It's a kind of like chain stores. All the temples are kind of independent. Each temple is an independent religious corporation. So Sotocha as a whole has certain structure, and there's a head of that organization, but the control is not really so strong. Okay, please.
So whenever you talk about when you were a teenager, and a lot of emotion comes up, and today what I was thinking about was that I've met some of the people who are young now, who don't see any place to go, who feel that way about society. Some of them express a lot of anger. I'm thinking of the people that I walked from Boston to New York with. And some of them were just making it their whole life to be political activists. And they weren't very patient with, like, speaking kindly to the police or something. It's like, so I got in some arguments because I'm not very patient either. But I didn't think there was any point in being rude to the police, even though they were spying on us. And at the permaculture thing, there was one night where people got really, really drunk, and they're not supposed to have alcohol at all. And I was really, really angry, and I couldn't understand it. And then I thought, well, what do they have to look forward to? Look at what we've handed them. And so I had some compassion, but I was still angry because, I wanted them to, like, do the best and make the most of it, and, whatever. I wanted them to find a way that they didn't have to use these escape things. And I don't know what the question is there, but I just feel like talking
I think young people need some, model or example of sweet fruit.
Yeah, yeah.
But especially in the, modern societies or in developed country like United States or Japan, what society expect to the young people are, study and be a part of that money-making machine. And I don't think many young people, really want to be the part of the machine. They need something more kind of not specifically spiritual, but some, positive, good reason to live. I think, meaning of life. And instead of, money or benefit and fame, or those material things, this modern society doesn't have much to offer to young people. I think that is a problem.
Yeah, I think my sadness comes because my children have all chosen to be part of the machine and they're doing very well.
Mm.
And I come in and I want to give them this other thing, and I haven't learned how to do it without criticizing. I think I'm getting a little bit better, but they kind of
Well,
cautious about me.
we can't fight against them.
Right, exactly.